Hi everyone. How are we doing today? I hope you are excited just like I am to join today's program. Previously, that was like last week we went through a topic on Azure Container Native app, and today we're going to like look into CI/CD with promise today. So we're going to continue right away. How are we doing? So I would like to introduce our speaker for today. Our speaker for today is no other person than Promise. Promise has been with us. Promise is a Microsoft MVP and Azure community leader. Hi, Promise, are you there?
Hello, Catherine. How you doing?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you as well. Been a while.
Yeah.
How's everything going?
It's been fine. And you?
Yeah, it's been great. Awesome. Awesome. I hope everyone is also excited about the topic too.
Yeah. How excited are we, guys? Are we
I would just say that it's very important to know that what we do as a community is to spark up the interest, right? We very much believe in bringing, sparking up that interest in the members of our community, and directing them towards the right path to go. So for those who are excited about doing lots of data workload, understanding how CICD can help them, in their various endeavors. Yeah, it would be a very nice topic for them as well. So yeah.
So, guys, are we ready? Promise will again going to take us on the topic DevOps for data workload and analytic, CI/CD for data engineering, data breaks analytics. So, I hope we are all inside. We are all excited to go on this journey with Promise, and please let's be attentive.
Awesome.
Hi,
Thank you very much, Catherine.
hi Promise, you can take over. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much for that, Catherine. It was an awesome one. Today I will be speaking on this interesting topic, DevOps for data workloads and analytics. And then specifically, I'll be looking at CI/CD for data engineering, data breaks, and analytics, right? Um, Proceeding on this topic, I would say there are very core basic key points, right? We have to understand with this, right? With this particular topic, or this topic in particular, we are basically focusing on how will DevOps help you who is into the data workspace, right? Who is into doing things related to data. What is the intersection of DevOps to all of this, right? And as you all know, Azure is one very good platform that embodies that responsibility of providing you with various services that helps to what will I say, make the burden of your data workloads easier, right? Some of you that have to do a lot of things with your data bricks workspaces, or you're making use of the Azure machine language for doing your modeling, training your models, you know, this is one beautiful place where Azure comes in to help make the process easier. Now, I'm going to try my best to, what's the word to use? Give an insight into this topic. Now, we might not be able to go through all the whole uh, of DevOps and the integrating processes, but I aim to be able to give you some insight how, making use of your CI/CD pipelines, how you can integrate them with your um, Databricks workload, or how you can even configure your virtual machine to be able to have um, your pipeline to have your Databricks CLI, and then be able to work from there, right? So I'm looking at this for this session. I'm just basically looking at these key points. This is what I intend to go through for this particular session. And the first one is just the introduction, and the next one will be how is DevOps for data engineering. That's the way I put it, right? But the idea is generally how is DevOps integrating and working with data engineering. We'll also look at CI/CD for data engineering. Yes, CI/CD for data engineering. How do both of them come into play? How do you build your CI/CD pipelines for data engineering? And also be looking at integration of Databricks with DevOps. All right, now let's proceed to the introduction. Um, for this introduction, basically, we want to focus on what is the overview of DevOps when it comes to data workloads and analytics, right? What is the overview? Now, it's very much important to say here that using or making use of the DevOps way of working goes a long way in simplifying your work process. And when we talk about the DevOps way of working, it means that we are not just focusing on only the automation processes, right? We are also looking at how are you managing your codes, right? Your data workloads, or let's say the codes which you're making to or you're using for your analytics. How are you managing this? What process are you using to manage this? Or what tool are you using to manage this? Are there processes in place in your organization, right, that helps to make your the processes which you do in analyzing data or governing the data in the organization, are there processes which you generally use for this, right? So those are some of the things you need to really put in place, because I know people generally take the DevOps to just mean, hey, you are talking of pipelines. But sure, trust me, it goes way beyond pipelines. Now, also, we're going to be looking at what is the importance of um, continuous integration and continuous development in data engineering. Yes, the continuous integration and continuous development is what people know as your pipelines. Yes, for those of us who are into building of the pipelines for various workloads, right? And then the role of Databricks in modern day analytics. I mean, I feel like Databricks can be used for a lot of things, right? Databricks can be used for a lot of things, which we all can be able to learn from, right? So yes, let's proceed on this. Hopefully, I'm able to do one or two practical sessions, right? Because yes, we have some guides from Microsoft as well to help us, follow through from this topic. Now, DevOps for data engineering, and it says here, what is the definition of DevOps in context to data engineering? Does anyone have an idea? Can anyone in the can you in the chat, tell me what is your context, defining DevOps in the context of data engineering, like making use of key components such as automation, collaboration, monitoring, and feedback. Anyone have an idea? If you have an idea, please just comment it down there. I'm happy to hear from you. Anyone? Well, I'm not getting any, I'm not seeing any chats yet. So I'm just going to assume that everyone is waiting and wanting to hear. But generally, guys, the basic idea for DevOps in the context of data engineering is to what? Provide what? Fast delivery, improved quality, and greater agility. And this, all of this process stems up right from the point of when you are deciding what problem you want to solve in data engineering. Oh, someone said it's about the same thing just for data related workload. And that's Adedakwo Kusomi. Hello, Dakwo, Dolakwo. I think that's my good friend, a former colleague. Nice, nice. It's good to hear that. It's good to see you, Adedakwo. So, yes, he says it's about the same thing just for data related workloads. Yes, and he's right. He's right because DevOps is DevOps, right? DevOps basically talks about the from the process of inception when you get the idea of how or what problem you want to solve. How do you present this idea to the team? How do you break down your task workload in a team? I know various organizations makes use of various ways to do this. Some of the times you will see a couple of engineers making use of probably the Azure DevOps board. Some could make use of Jira board. Those who make use of Jira board, but generally this is it's there are various tools that you can use to help distribute the task. You know you understand what the problem that needs to be solved, break the problem into tasks, and basically for you to be able to do this, that means that you must have a constant sitting with your team, right? You must have a constant sitting with your team, discuss what the problem is, and then discuss how you break down the task into chunks that can be executed by anyone within the team. So all of this whole process is the same thing being integrated, but now it's just that you're working in the data engineering workspace. Now, up until the point you decide to say, okay, even when you are proposing a solution to be used, even when you propose a solution to be used by the engineer, it could be a solution to just deploy the Databricks workspace in Azure, or to be able to run commands on your workspace in Azure, and you want to automate that process. How you go about the solution? Some would say, oh, I think it's best for me to make use of Terraform to deploy my infrastructure inside of a pipeline, right? All of those things are all dependent on how you want to go as a team. There are some teams who will say, oh, because we don't want to do much, oh, maybe they would prefer to just create the 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 Databricks workspace or the AML machine language workspace using the Azure portal, right? All of these are all it all comes down to what is the defined processes in your organization. Yes, sure, there are standard processes to be used. Yes, which would include, of course, in Azure DevOps, you expect that you should be able to take note of what you're creating. And to be able to take note of what you're creating, a lot of people like to make use of Terraform because it has this state file where you can always use to monitor what has been created, what needs to be joined, or what needs to be created, and then it doesn't destroy what you currently have, but just adds to it, right? So there are various ways to do that. And even in creating the pipelines, there are still various ways to do that. Some people might decide, okay, let's make use of Azure DevOps to do that. Someone else will decide, let's make use of what's it called, Jenkins. Some would say Argo CD. Various tools you can make use of, but the process still remains the process, right? Faster delivery, improved quality, and greater agility. All right, let's move on. Now, CI/CD for data engineering, right? One thing you need to understand about this is you cannot talk about building a CI/CD pipeline when you don't know what are the necessary steps, right? Um, as a DevOps engineer or a data engineer, one of the things that would really help your work is understanding how these things work. And it stems up to the point of, do you have what pipeline are you using? What repo are you using? Um, Take for instance, okay, let me share my screen, for instance, and explain this. One moment. Yes, say I want to. This is 1 minute. Ah. Um, Give me 1 minute. Dev the Azure. Yeah. Yes. So I mean, okay. I think my screen is now up. Let me reduce the fonts. Yes. So this is, some of you may already be used to this, but this is, I would say, a sample of, what's the word to use? This is a sample of what your Azure DevOps project display would look like. Now, a lot of people would prefer, okay, um, do I make use of, what's the word? Git action? Do I use Azure DevOps, or yeah, or you make use of GitHub, to store your codes? Or in fact, there are so many tools there which you can actually do make use of. But some of the things that Azure does is, Azure also helps to provide you with a place where you can both store your codes and be able to build your pipeline. Now, if you're looking at actually um, creating a pipeline for your data workloads, of course, one of the things you have to do is to understand what comes first. Yes, that is one thing you have to do. You need to understand what comes first. Now, I think I have a sample. Let me see in my repo here. Oh, okay, 1 minute. Let me open a code just to help explain what I'm trying to push. Yeah, just a moment, guys. Yes, I'm trying to sign into my workspace. One minute. Yes, yes, I'm here with you. Okay, here it is. Yes. So, here is a sample, some sample projects I've worked in the past, right? Or I've some sample projects I've done in the past, and I think here was let's see this particular code in question. Yes, so this was a sample pipeline just to be able to deploy a storage account. And one of the things I wanted to do in this particular scenario was to make use of Terraform to be able to do that. But in this particular scenario, what I wanted to explain basically is this: for you to talk about building or working with CI/CD to develop your workloads, you need to know what it is to be able to build a pipeline, right? How should a pipeline be run? What are the necessary steps you need to take? And just like I was showing, yes, just like I was showing here in the this particular exactly, I was saying for you to understand continuous integration and continuous deployment in data engineering, first you need to know what it is able to build a pipeline. And just in some minutes earlier, or some few minutes earlier, I explained to you, or I just showed you a sample of what a pipeline looks like. Now I'm going to break that down to you, but then again, let me show you some pipeline runs here. Just a minute. Okay, good. Sharing my screen. Now, as you see here on my screen, in this particular code, as I explained earlier, what I was trying to do in this scenario was to make use of Terraform to be able to Terraform on my pipeline to be able to deploy an infrastructure in Azure, right? And here was a, will I call it, here's the sample Terraform code which I made use of. It's a very small project, nothing major, but if you look at this clearly, you will see this is how your your Terraform script to deploy, maybe your, it could be your Databricks instance, it could be your AML instance, but that doesn't limit you on, oh, this is Terraform, how then do I integrate to the pipeline? It doesn't limit you because Azure also provides that interface. Now, the interesting thing with this is whenever you are about to deploy your pipeline or create your pipeline, all of these codes can just be imported into your Azure DevOps. It's quite easy to integrate your Azure DevOps into your where you stored your code. Even if you're making use of GitHub or you're making use of some other what's the word? Some other tool. It could be Azure DevOps or any other tool out there. But the important thing is that you know what it's like to build your pipeline. Now, in this particular scenario, I had made use of this is a two-stage pipeline. You can see it has two stage in the sense that here, in this particular scenario here, you can see what I wanted to do was to to first validate the code, right? And in this validating my code, I wanted to make use of one to install Terraform. And in the process of installing Terraform, I had another task which will do what? A Terraform init and a Terraform validate, right? So that's the first stage. Now, like I always say, it all depends on how you want to build your solution, right? You could build your solution in, any way comfortable. But what I wanted to achieve in this scenario here was I wanted to make it a scenario where you could, at the first stage, be able to do your init, validate that your code works as it should before you move on to what the deployment stage, right? And once you're able to validate and of course the code meets your satisfaction, then you can proceed to delete. And if you notice here in the deploy stage, I still had the Terraform install init, and then you can either plan or you decide to apply. Anyone, works fine, right? And this is just the sample of the code. Now, basically, this is, like I said, this is a two-stage pipeline. But then the main code itself is in here. This is actually the main Terraform code itself. So what the pipeline is just doing is that the pipeline is coming here and actually deploying this code, right? It takes this code and it's able to deploy this code. And if you look here, you would see it could be something like this, right? This is just a sample of what the pipeline would look like. You can decide by any way means to either, let's say, create a new project, make use of an existing stage you have to be able to deploy this pipeline. So, say for instance, now I want to make use of this project. I could come here, creating a new pipeline from scratch, right? I could come here and say, run a pipe. Okay, this is if I already have my code in here. I could come here under the pipelines and create a new pipeline here. Now, this is why I said in the first place that Azure DevOps has made it quite easy because it integrates with quite a number of platforms to be able to get some of those codes which you may have already built or you may have already deployed. Now, in this particular scenario, you would see here that I'm able to integrate with what both Azure itself, Azure repos, I'm able to integrate with Bitbucket, GitHub, or GitHub Enterprise Server, all that kinds of Git and Subversion. Now, all of these are various ways where people decide to store their codes. Now, it all depends on where you have your code stored. And if you say Git, if you decide to go for Git, you need to choose which project do you have your Git on. In my own case, I'm not making use of Azure DevOps or Azure Repos Git. I'm making use of GitHub, right? So in this place, it would ask me to authenticate into GitHub, right? And then it should then be able to see this pipeline. And that's how you can then trigger the pipeline. I'm not able to get that credential right now, so let me not even bother about going into that, right? But this is just a sample of what your pipeline looks like. And if you see here, um, here basically, this is calling the repo where this is coming from, and you can see this is the sample infrastructure itself, right? In this particular pipeline, this pipeline is doing like what would I call it? It creates a storage account, does Terraform init, Terraform plan, and Terraform apply. Now here are the Terraform scripts or the codes which are being built or which is used in building these resources. These are the outputs I expect, right? Here is my provider. Some of you who are used to Terraform would have an idea about this. Here is my provider, right? To be able to create my Azure resources, I need a provider to be able to do that, right? And then here are the variables which I want to, which I want to make use of. And these are the variable, I would say the variable names itself, right? And then you see also here the application which I'm trying to also build, because in this particular project, aside deploying the Kubernetes cluster, I am also deploying an application into the Kubernetes cluster, right? So you see how all of these work hand in hand. I'm able to deploy the infrastructure, and then I'm able to also deploy the application inside of the infrastructure. So this is just a sample project which I had worked on earlier to explain some basic concepts about CI/CD. But the general practice is that when making use of CI/CD, I think one of the best things I would say is that CI/CD just helps to improve, or it helps to make your deployment process faster. That's just one of the beautiful things I would say, especially when it comes to your data workloads. If you have to process data, you need to probably train some models, do one or two things. Your CI/CD pipeline helps you to automate all of those processes. Now, let's move on. We've basically talked about CI/CD. Now, one of the beautiful things CI/CD would help you do is that it helps in automating your testing process, right? How do you test your pipelines, or how do you test your data workload, or maybe you're trying to test some models. All of those things could be done in one single click of a button, right? And you don't have to bother yourself with how the pipeline is running and all of that, because all those work were previously done, right? So it simplifies all of the manual processes and makes them into a single automated process where you can be able to test your builds and also deploy your infrastructure or your services in Azure easily and quickly. Now, also CI/CD would, for especially when it comes to your pipelines, it makes them even more reliable and helps you to scale and maintain your workload, right? Your data pipelines, they help you to have some form of reliable structure to be able to do your testing. and scale your environment and also maintain them. So this is one of the very importance of having CI/CD in your data engineering processes. And then we move on to the last one for today, which is basically how integrating of Databricks with Azure DevOps, right? How are you integrating Databricks with your CI/CD pipelines? Earlier, I just showed a sample of what your CI/CD pipelines would look like and how you can be able to, build your codes, right, with your CI/CD pipeline. Now, in taking a closer look at this, we'll take a look at what we have here. We have a simple, interesting workflow. And sure, I'm going to share this to everyone who wants to actually take some time to go through this, because I would say it's quite interesting, right? It's quite interesting. Having a knowledge of this alone, man, it takes you places, right? Now we are looking at how is Databricks, right, in integrating with your Azure DevOps. That's what we just mentioned now, right? Seamless integration of Databricks with your CI/CD pipelines, leveraging Databricks APIs and SDK for automation, and how are you doing your version control and tracking changes in your Databricks notebooks and jobs. Now, one beautiful thing is that Azure has provided us with some interesting development workflow which we can make use of in building any of these services. And look at, guys, these are all public facing. There's no hidden um, hidden interest here. It's all public facing articles you can make use of, and I'm going to be sharing them here. Just 1 minute. I'll share them on the chat because I mean these are things you can do in your very spare time. Go through them and understand basically all of the workflow and how you can integrate your CI/CD with your Databricks. Now you can see here simple steps. One, you need to create your repository, right? And I spoke about this earlier, where I said in my own case, I was making use of GitHub. Now, you could decide to make use of what's it called? You could decide to make use of Azure DevOps or any of those platforms. That's fine. There's no limit onto where you can store your codes. What's the first next thing to do? You need to connect your local machine to the same third-party repository. In this case, what it's just trying to say is you need to authenticate. Either you're authenticating from your Azure DevOps to your GitHub server, where your GitHub server is, or you're authenticating to where you have your codes in Azure DevOps repo Git, right? Or any other places where you're storing your codes. And then the next thing is you need to pull any existing updated artifact. Could be notebook, code files, build script, down to your local development machine from the what third party repository. And it says as necessary, create, update, test artifacts. Now you can do all of this. Basically, it will help you with setting up your pipeline, right? And then it now start talking about how you can install the Databricks CLI. So this, in essence, is just giving you an idea on how you can integrate both your Databricks with CI/CD. For some of you who need to do testings, building your workloads and stuff like that, right? This comes in at a very, very easy pace, right? So, like I said, I would actually share this because it would be of interest to those of you who are really, keen about learning more on data engineering. You want to know how your Databricks works, how your Azure Machine Language, your AML works. All of these things can I mean, can set you apart, right? It can set you apart from your fellow peers out there. And of course, what one of the things we try to do in this community is to build people of resource who can be able to distinguish themselves in their various workplaces, right? Awesome. Right. So, like I said, this will take you through the step you need in walking through how you can install your Databricks CLI through your pipeline, and then you can run various bash scripts as you begin. This is a step by step process and gives you down to detailed workflow, right? And you can see here basically talking about adding your existing files to your repository. And then after you've added your existing files to your repository, you can see it's a sample Python script, right? You can actually use this and test this, right? And then after doing this, here you can add a unit testing notebook for the the Python wheel file, right? And here is the notebook. You can see it. This is the Python wheel file, right? So here you can create your bundle configuration, and from there, here is a sample way to create that bundle configuration you will need. And then here you define the build pipeline. So this basically just is referring to the same point I was showing you, how you are able to create your pipeline with your existing files. And you see you have your CI/CD, and then from here, these are the basic templates of what your pipeline should look like. It should have a trigger, a pull. A pull generally is on what virtual machine are those commands going to run on. And then you should start with your stage, right? Your stage, your jobs, and finally your steps. So these are some of the steps here where you can use to copy the codes. Once you copy the codes, and then you can either zip them and publish your zipped files. Then you can now design your release pipeline, how you would like to release this. Like I showed you earlier, I had created a two-stage pipeline. Yours could be a three-stage. It all depends on what you want to achieve. All right, so this basically just gives you a sample workflow on how your Databricks is integrating with your CI/CD and how you can be able to run this yourself. Um, yeah, so I'm hoping that, I mean, with these few ideas I've pointed you to, that you're going to be able to take some time to go through this particular workflow and get some understanding on how to build your pipelines. Yes, it's very important that you have some understanding on how to build your pipelines. Let me share the link here. Yes, I believe I have shared the link. So, I mean, anyone who has any questions in all of this, please don't hesitate to reach out. Of course, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Um, Here, I think I have a profile page on this. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So if you also want to get to know more about me, yeah, I think this is my profile page. Yes, here's my profile page on GitHub. Feel free, reach out, and we can always discuss further. Right? Yes. So amazing, guys. Amazing, guys. Does anyone have any question for me? Does anyone have any question for me? I think with this, I'm going to round up this session for today. And of course, we are going to be continuing the series, so we are not giving up on you. Yes, we intend to talk more about the series. Yes, my host is she's back on. Hello, Catherine. How you doing?
Hi, Promise. I'm good. Promise, thanks. That was a great presentation. Hi, guys. I hope we've learned a lot from Promise presentation. Now we should be able to have an idea of how to integrate our Databricks with Azure. Do you guys have any question for Promise?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not seeing any responses, but yeah, sure. I guess people are always they always have the opportunity to go over the videos when they are done. All right. I mean, like I said, if you have questions, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn, Twitter, or any of the other platforms, and I'm here to answer as much as I can. Over
Okay,
to
thanks. Thanks for your time. Promise we appreciate you coming to teach us more on this platform. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week ahead. Bye, friend here.